towers over me. Gracious tempest in the sea, surround me like a storm. Let your tide of mercy rain. Let it flood my heart again. Surround me like an ocean. Your love is crashing over me. It's surging like a raging sea. Immerse me in the wonder of your love. A downpour of unending grace, consuming all my reckless ways. My sins submerged, your love has saved my soul. Your love is like a storm. Your love is like a storm. Let your tide of mercy rain. Let it flood my heart again. Surround me like an ocean. Your love is crashing over me. It's surging like a raging sea. Immerse me in the wonder of your love. A downpour of unending grace, consuming all my reckless ways. My sins submerged, your love has saved my soul. Your love is like a storm. Your love is like a storm. Your love is like a storm. Your love is like a storm.
You know, we knew that this weekend was coming for the ladies' retreat, and normally the way that we've done retreats in the past is the ladies all go somewhere, 200 or 300 miles away. And this year, we have a mixed multitude at our Sabbath. So, we have a lot of people here versus just a few guys with the kids. So we're glad you're here. And so we were preparing for that thing in ourselves. We really want to encourage these ladies. We need a speaker that's dynamic. We need someone who understands women, their needs, their goodness, their smiles. I mean, just the great radiance that Yahweh has brought. And so I was like, well, maybe we should pick me. They were like, not feeling that so much. And I was like, I took a little hit for that. And I was like, okay, so Hector. They're like, no, I'm not feeling that one either. Robert? Yeah, he's not the one. We need someone who can really represent. Let's hear it for the ladies today. Come on. So today, we decided we would go to the one who understands. His name is Brother Art Zurita. Yeah, let's hear it for Art. And I want to tell you, I did not review his notes on purpose so that I wouldn't give him counsel before he came up. But I'm sure that he has a message prepped and ready, and you ladies are going to be completely inspired. Arturo.
Shabbat Shalom. Now, I know I do not have my PhD in women, but it is interesting, though, that the women's retreat seems to have brought in more men than the men's retreat. So it just shows you how organized you guys are. But Shabbat Shalom to all of you guys. I know this being the women's retreat, for some of you it may be the first time. So if it's your first time, raise your hand. Like any retreat. Oh, all right. It's my first women's retreat as well. And I see we have several different people here. How many of you are married? How many of you have children? Now, know that they did not put me up here to speak to you guys what you know. But I am a 20-something-year-old boy up here who's not going to talk about womanhood, but just talk about my perspective. Because being 20-something, you obviously grow up in a society that has different cultures, and cultures change. And being a man, I obviously have a different viewpoint than you women. But there's a specific thing that I want to talk about. And considering that it is the women's retreat, I know that you guys have a bunch of stuff that you guys are going to get to. So it's going to be more of a shorter message. It's not going to be 3 hours. It's going to be a bit shorter. But what I want to talk about is a specific female in the Bible, who I'm pretty sure you guys can't guess who it is. No. It's not? Nope. No. What it is someone who's actually very misunderstood. Someone who doesn't really get as much attention, or actually gets bad attention. We'll get to her. Okay. First off, though, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Arturo. If you can't roll the R's, then you could just shorten it. Call me Art, like the Mona Lisa. I have been coming to Shalom Assembly for what feels like half a decade. It's really only been 5 years. I am kind of like the video guy here. I love editing videos. If you maybe have seen them online. We have For His Name TV and different stuff like that. Some of you may know my mom. She's the woman in the back. She goes by Gloria. I just call her Mom. If you haven't met her, you'll probably hear her before you see her. I love her, though. She's a great woman. She's very strict. She's very hardworking. And she truly is the reason why I am the man that I am today. So a round of applause for my mom, if you may. I know a lot of people say that their mom is the best mom in the world, but the Bible also says not to lie, so, just... So, me growing up, back in the 90s and the 2000s, a lot of things changed from there. We go from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray, the explosion of the internet, the ability for anyone who just has a smartphone to be able to make videos, blog, create articles, to get your opinion out there. And for me growing up, the whole idea of respecting women was normal. I was raised by a single mom, so if I didn't respect her, I'd get the worst end of the stick. So in today's society, we have this idea of feminism. I'm not going to get into the whole debacle that is that, but the original word, the definition for feminism is just equality. But in my household, it wasn't really feminism. It was just called being a good human being because you respect everyone around you. But growing up in the school, I wasn't homeschooled. I went to a public school, and you would read things like, all men are created equal. And you may read that and as a kid be like, oh man, what about the women? And I grew up with all of my teachers being females. The crossing guards were females. The nurses were females. The PE teachers were female. And the way that they always said it was, no, it's standing for mankind. It's just short for mankind. So when it says all men are created equal, that includes women as well. So then you get into it in the Bible, and the Bible focuses a lot with the word men. And you're reading the Ten Commandments, and it seems like this is directly just for men and not for women. But the same way applies in where it's talking to both. So this past November, there was a little something going on TV. It's a little competition. Maybe you guys heard of it. So a lot of people, again, had those smartphones. They were able to create articles and all these different things to write about their opinion pieces and what was going on. And there was a specific article that I ran across that was from a proclaimed feminist who was talking about the woman in the Bible, or the lack thereof. And I found that interesting because in the beginning of the article, she said, I believe the number of women that are named is 170, around there. Whereas for men, it's 1,181. not the best at math, but that's a little bit of a difference. So I thought about it, I was like, okay, was that saying that the Bible is not meant for women? And I was reading her article, and she really made it seem like if you're a female, you shouldn't be following the Bible, because the Bible is not meant for you. And I'm like, what? And as she kept going, she started talking about how every time that it says the word man, it's not talking about men and women, it's just talking about men. So half of the commandments don't even apply to you guys. I was like, that's interesting. She then started ripping on different women in the Bible and just saw all the negative in them. That the women in the Bible weren't leaders like Moses and Abraham. The women in the Bible were just women who were depending on men and were crying at their feet. And they weren't as independent or as strong as the men were portrayed in the Bible. Which is interesting to me again, because as I read it, the only character who she said was good was Eve. She said Eve was the first true feminist because she made her own decision to pick that fruit. She forgot the part where it kind of like damned everyone, but other than that, she really liked focusing on all the bad in the Bible and refused to see any other viewpoint, which was interesting to me because growing up in a household where Hadassah is like Superman and we watch like One Night with the King every other night, I can name so many people. There is Esther, who literally saved all of her kind, because she was brave enough to walk in and say, hey, I'm going to do something about this. And with a name like Hadassah, which literally sounds like a superhero move, she practically is a superhero. There's Ruth, who stayed with her mother-in-law. I think most of you see that as heroic enough. There's Moses, and how that guy would have floated away if it wasn't for the bravery of his mom, who was willing to let her son go so later on he would come back to help them all go. Moses had Miriam, who guided him. Moses had Pharaoh's daughter, who had the kindness in her heart to take him and raise him. Moses had Zipporah, his wife, who, if it wasn't for her, more would have been cut from him. So there's a lot of people that he had to thank, a lot of women in his life, that if it wasn't for them, he wouldn't be where he was. There's the way Martha served, the way Deborah led. But again, all these were ignored in this article because she just wanted to see the negative of it. Instead, she focused on Delilah and how evil she was. And how, you see, the women are just the evil people in the Bible, looking out to ruin men's lives. And she focused on how Sarah doubted. She focused on all these horrible things, Mary Magdalene's past. And she saw every single mistake that these women had made as things to tarnish their entire reputation. Which I found interesting because King David has made more mistakes, yet he's still King David. King David kind of peeping Tomed over at a woman, brought her over, and then straight up murdered her husband, yet he's still known as King David. That doesn't tarnish his legacy until you really study him. When you talk about Solomon, what's the first thing you think of? The wisest man in the Bible. Not that other problem that he had where he was thinking, you know Solomon. There's all these people. Abraham lied, but he's still the father of faith. You have Moses, the leader who couldn't even make it into his own final destination. But all of the mistakes that they did doesn't tarnish their reputation because the Bible isn't about perfect people. There's only one perfect one in the Bible. The Bible is about the broken examples that relate to us. So, as I was reading this article, and she refused to see the mistakes that the women characters, just like the males in the Bible, they both did wrong things. She was just seeing it as things that, okay, that ruins you completely, which wasn't the case. We all make mistakes, and the female characters in the Bible are just like the male characters in where it's all done for a purpose. So I started looking around and thinking, that is true. We look at Adam, and some people see Adam as being the innocent one. It was Eve who caused him to sin. The man was just there. He didn't know. You see Abraham, he was steadfast. It was his wife who laughed. He didn't. And we look over all these different mistakes, and as I was looking at it, I thought, maybe there's a lot more to these characters than we pay the mind to. I think of Lot's wife. And all we know Lot's wife for is for doing this little dance move where she looks back, she freezes, and she was done. And many of us can easily read that and go, I wouldn't turn around. There's a lot more to her story. There's a reason she turned around. And it doesn't mean that what she did, it was still disobedience, but there's more meaning behind it. And you see a bunch of the other females in the Bible, which led me to one specific person that I saw in a completely different light. If you want to, you can turn over to the book of Job. There's 42 chapters. We're not going to read all of them. But the specific person that I'm talking about that I found to be very interesting was Job's wife. Because the entire story of Job, as we know, is the story of this man who was super holy. And then all of these bad things cast upon him, and we feel for Job and everything Job is going through. And as I read through it, and from my recollection of Job and even reading some commentaries, people see his wife as just being another obstacle that was in Job's way. That Job lost his children, Job lost all of his wealth, and then his wife comes in and nags at him and tells him, why don't you just kill yourself? And that's the only thing that we know about her. This woman's life is defined by 2 sentences in a 42-chapter book. And it's in chapter 2, verse 9, when she says it to him, do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse Elohim and die. But let's back up a bit. If Job was this super holy dude, and he had all these children, and whenever his children went out and they partied, he would even do a sacrifice for them just in case they did something they weren't supposed to. He was so holy that Yahweh and Satan talked with each other and said, look at this man. He's super holy. And Satan's like, yeah, but you give him everything. They have a discussion, and they come to this, you can call it a bet, in where this man was so holy, Yahweh was betting everything on this man. But if Job was so holy, wouldn't his wife also have been by his side, be just as faithful? So when Job loses his children, is not Job's wife also losing her children? When Job loses all of his cattle and his property, is not Job's wife also losing her entire lifestyle? Now, I'm a man and I haven't had a child, but I feel like there's a bit more of a connection when you actually hold the baby for 9 months and then give birth to the child. And she had 10 children. So we're just so focused on Job and how this man has suffered. This man is going through all these things. And then comes this woman who comes up to him and just puts him down even more, forgetting that she's also mourning her children. She's also mourning the fact that all of their belongings are gone. And on top of that, in chapter 2, Job gets smitten down with something so horrible, his friends can't even recognize him. That's how sick he got. That's how much he broke out. And it even states that other than the 3 friends who came in, who were literally just there to give him bad advice, the rest of his friends didn't show up till chapter 42. So who's there next to Job if he's so sick that he needs to be tended to? Job's wife. Job's wife is mourning her children. Job's wife is mourning the fact that they had just lost everything that they have. And Job's wife is there looking at the man who she loves, suffering. Can't even recognize him. And at that point, she says the line that we deem so horrible. Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse Elohim and die. Now, we see that as being so bad, but I see it as a woman who has lost everything, and she's looking at her husband, the one person she loves, and is unrecognizable, and is looking at him and saying, I would rather you be put out of your misery and me have to live the rest of my life alone than to continue seeing you like this. But it's still a sin. She's doubting Yahweh. And we know that she was steadfast in her faith beforehand, that she wasn't this bitter woman, because Job, in chapter 2, verse 12, tells her, why are you acting like those foolish women? That's not you. That's not the woman I married. That's not why we became, this great example that we are. You're acting like the foolish woman who would say something like this. Yet, again, the only 2 lines that she gets, it's what judges her entire character. Even though Job questions later on in the book as well. but Job's still Job. So it's interesting that you see this happen to her, that she's defined by these two sentences that she says, even though we know, as you can see, she was there for him from the beginning. She also is mourning. And even though we see what she says as like the biggest sin possible, we know that in the Bible, when Yahweh says something and you don't listen to it, he's going to punish you. When he said, do not touch the Ark of the Covenant, and some dude who literally was just, wasn't doing it, he just really wanted to make sure it didn't fall, what happened to him when he touched it? As soon as he touched it, died. We mentioned Lot's wife. She looked back just for a second, and what happened? Turned into salt. So you would think if we're looking at her as having said this horrible, terrible thing, wouldn't Yahweh have punished her when it came to chapter 42, when he was dishing out the judgment? When he grabs the three other people, or the wise men who were with Job, and makes them sacrifice? He doesn't, though. Instead, it says Job gets blessed, but she gets blessed with 10 more children. Children that are so beautiful, it says that they were the most precious daughters in all the land. They get more cattle, they get bigger property. She gets blessed tenfold. And then in chapter 42, his friends arrive. And then they're there and they go, oh man, how have you been? Yet she was there the entire time. But what is she judged for? The 2 lines in where she said, put yourself out of your misery. So I see it as having so much more depth to all of these characters in the Bible, male and female. And as I went back and I looked at that article, I was just like, it was a bitter article. She didn't understand the purpose of it. And the purpose that I'm trying to make with the example of Job's wife is that many times we have these unheard heroes who don't get the recognition they deserve. For me personally, me speaking up here isn't just because I came from some test tube and was created to be the greatest speaker of all time. It was because I was raised by someone who cared for me, by someone who took the time to nourish me, to educate me, to be the man that I am today. But you don't always see that. And I think having this retreat with you guys is sort of a testament to that. That those of you who are married and have kids, put your husbands to work and have them take care of the kids while they're at home. Have a good time while you're here, that you're spending it with somebody else who knows what you're going through, who has the same intentions, who have the same beliefs, and have a good time with it. Because I believe that having those unheard heroes go unnoticed is probably one of the biggest issues that we have. So while I was reading this blogger who was picking and choosing how she saw the women in the Bible and felt that the Bible was not meant for you guys, I was just like, you're missing one of the most critical verses. In Galatians 3, verse 28, the final verse, it says, there is neither Jew or Greek, slave nor free, male or female, for you are all one in Yeshua. Hallelujah.